Emperor Uriel Septim VII is renowned for being one of Tamriel's best emperors. Some would say that a good or successful leader would be one who expanded their territory by conquering lands and defeating enemies. However, Uriel Septim, although he did expand the empire's influence, can be considered a great emperor mostly because his reign was one of peace and prosperity. It makes sense to start chronologically with Uriel Septim's earlier reign. One of the emperor's central policies during his first decade or so in power was to unify the provinces. Although all of them were under the influence of the empire, Uriel sought to confederate the different states. Particularly, he wanted to extend the empire's influence in Morrowind and Blackmarsh. One only has to play the Elder Scrolls III Morrowind to see how nationalistic, xenophobic and inward-looking the Dunmer tend to be. So no surprise that the Imperials felt they had little cultural influence there. In order to bring Morrowind and Blackmarsh closer to the heartland of Tamriel, Uriel tried to convince natives of these provinces to become, as it were, Imperial cultural ambassadors. So in Morrowind, House Hlalu became closely affiliated with the Empire. They accepted Imperial culture, law, bureaucracy, and free trade. Uriel was smart because in finding powerful organizations native to Morrowind, such as House Hlalu, that would increase Imperial influence for him, he avoided a more militaristic situation where he might have had to send legionnaires in to force the ruling elite of Morrowind to conform more readily to Imperial doctrines. As I mentioned before, this is most impressive because Uriel managed to do all of this without war or violence breaking out. However, Uriel Septim's successful reign was cut short by Yeagar Tharn. Yeagar Tharn was the Emperor's chief advisor and battle mage. However, he used his position of closeness to the Emperor to betray him. He banished the Emperor to oblivion and used illusion magic to masquerade as the Emperor himself. Uriel Septim's imprisonment was like hell. Yeagar deliberately imprisoned him in a realm where Uriel experienced nothing but inexplicable and haunting nightmares, and because time moves more slowly in this realm, had no one come to rescue Uriel, he would have spent centuries in torment. Yeagar Tharn wasn't half the emperor that Uriel was. The economic downturn and waning imperial influence during Tharn's 10 years in power simply act as testimony to how much Uriel had managed to achieve. But luckily for the empire, Yeagar Tharn was finally defeated by a prisoner who undid his magic and released Uriel Septim from oblivion. Uriel had changed as a result of his imprisonment, but this didn't diminish his genius. He was older, less confident and more haggard, but this disposition lent itself well to his new, subtler approach to the affairs of state. Uriel Septim relied heavily on the blades to covertly manipulate situations to the Empire's favour. A chief example of this being in Morrowind, where the Emperor had the Nerevarine shipped to in order to avert the crisis that would ensue if Dagoth managed to break free of Red Mountain. Another example of Uriel's expert clandestine manipulation is also seen in what is called the Miracle of Peace, or the Warp in the West. The warp in the West is quite complicated, but the salient facts are these. In the Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall, the player travels around Iliac Bay, which is a province of High Rock, and this bay was filled with many petty kingdoms all warring and fighting each other. To make matters worse, the Orcs also claimed a region called Orsinium, and the Red Guards had claims on the island of Bethany, which many in Daggerfall disputed. Essentially, Iliac Bay was a region of economic stagnancy and depravity because of how much infighting there was among the various factions. Anyway, the protagonist of the Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall managed to resolve the issues in Iliac Bay at the behest of Emperor Uriel Septim VII by acting the new medium and causing a dragon break. A dragon break is when the laws of causality are suspended and time is flexible. In other words, it's an event that allows for the fabric of reality to be changed. In this case, the dragon break allowed for 4 major kingdoms to emerge in Iliac Bay, where there had once been 44 independent kingdoms. The kingdoms of Daggerfall, Hammerfell, Sentinel and Wayrest all took over the land in Iliac Bay. As a result of this, all the petty infighting stopped and the region started to economically catch up with the rest of the empire. This serves as yet another example of how Uriel Septim's foresight and clandestine manipulation allowed him to strengthen his holdings and better the lives of the people he rules over. Another impressive aspect to his character is to do with his marriage. Uriel Septim married Calla Voria during his early years, but unluckily for him, she was a deeply unpleasant, arrogant woman who loved Uriel only for his position. But where some monarchs might divorce a woman and weaken their image simply because they don't like them, Uriel felt a duty to stay with his wife in order to maintain his image. But as we all know, he did indulge himself somewhat. He fathered an illegitimate son, Martin Septim, with an unknown woman. But be that as it may, the fact he stayed with his wife does show that Uriel Septim was a man who acted out of duty above all else. Uriel Septim also seems to be a genius because of his gift of foresight. He tells the hero of Kvatch that he'd seen them in his dream. It is perhaps also the case that he forswore them Reverine prophecy. I don't know the origins of these dreams, and it's not exactly a typical mark of a genius, but it certainly adds to his intelligent character. Not only is he smart enough to successfully outmaneuver his enemies, his dreams help him to foresee possible catastrophes and the heroes who might be able to avert them. Finally, let us deal with the Emperor's death, where a normal Emperor, desperately clinging on to the hope they might survive, might not have gifted away the Amulet of Kings to a random stranger. It was both Uriel Septim's selfless personality and his gift of foresight that allowed him to do just that and save the whole of Tamriel. Had he not acknowledged that his death was inevitable, and had he not foreseen that the hero of Kvatch would be the saviour of the Oblivion crisis, then the Amulet of Kings probably would have fallen straight into the hands of the Mythic Dawn. I know that eventually it did anyway, but the fact that it fell into their hands later than it otherwise could have probably helped to postpone Mehrunes Dagon's invasion by a bit. And at any rate, by giving the player the amulet, Uriel allowed them to fulfill their destiny. Joffrey only believed in the player and integrated them into his plans because they had the amulet. So it's safe to say that without Uriel's dying action, the hero of Kvatch might never have risen to the challenge posed by Mehrunes Dagon and the Mythic Dawn in the way that they did. To sum up Uriel Septim, I'd say he's incredibly unique as an emperor. He seems to have a genuine care for his people. His manipulation, his actions weren't just for the sake of enhancing his personal power, but to genuinely improve the lives of the citizens of the Empire. By integrating provinces like Blackmarsh and Morrowind, he would help to stop future wars between the otherwise nationalistic provinces. One only has to look at Blackmarsh's invasion of Morrowind in the 4th era to see how dangerous having a load of independent states together is. He's also dutiful. He commits himself to an unhappy marriage and gets involved in Iliac Bay out of a need to improve the lives of the people there. And to add to his intelligence is his gift of foresight, which allows him to make some incredibly important decisions that ultimately saved all of Tamriel. Thank you for watching this video. As I've said in previous videos, this video was pre-uploaded before I went to university, so if you're annoyed because I seem to be ignoring your suggestions, I'm not deliberately, it's just that I only make videos during the holidays and I schedule them weekly so they come out throughout the term. If you're wondering, I've scheduled all these videos to come out on a Saturday at roughly 7:30 PM. GMT. I'd also like to end by thanking my patrons. They really do help me out. Anyway, thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.